This is Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. Future Sense Now is brought to you by the Futures Forum. Stay tuned for a journey to the futures of women with host Dr. Claire Nelson.
Greetings and welcome to Future Sense Now, an online e-zine of the Futures Forum. It is March 2018 and we are celebrating Women's History Month with another exploration into the future history of women. We're voicing her story and we're thinking about 2030. Of course, we all know, or we should know by now, that the UN Agenda 2030 SDG Goal 5 speaks specifically to the development and inclusion of women. Now, with the giving and rising we saw since January 2017, when women around the world marched to protest the narrative embodied by Trumpism and the hashtag movement, Me Too movement begun, women futurists have been saying that they see a rising trend to women seeking leadership and starting their own organizations and enterprises and running for political office around the world. Now, in this segment, I will be speaking with Elizabeth Lucas, who is Executive Director of Soroptomists International, a women's organization that indeed focuses on the issue of gender. She is Executive Director, as I said, and oversees the direction setting and implementation of the organization's operations in the 20 countries and territories where they have chapters. She works with volunteers and staff to expand support for the mission, develop resources to ensure their financial security, and strengthen our brand. And don't women always be focused on self-financial security? How do you take that dollar and stretch it into two? She's an experienced NGO administrator or organization administrator with over 15 years experience, and her previous appointment was with the American Massage Therapy Association, which I'm sure she probably needs to get some massages to deal with this global organization with so many personalities. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Lucas to our conversation. How are you?
Well, thank you, Claire. I'm great today. It's beautiful and sunny here in Philadelphia as we begin the month of Women's History.
Yes, women's history, or women's herstory, I say sometimes. Well, I'm sure working with an international organization like Soroptomists, you're well aware that 2030 is what many people are calling a pull year, and SDG 5, Sustainable Development Goal 5, talking about the social engineering that will allow women to hopefully take their rightful place. Now, let's start with the big vision of this goal, which states we resolve between now and 2030 to end poverty and hunger, to help to build peaceful, just and inclusive societies, and to promote gender equality and empowerment of women and girls, and to ensure the planet is protected and its natural resources. Let's start by saying, when you as Soroptomists Executive Director hears that, what do you think?
Well, certainly, as you point out, the UN has a far-reaching agenda for 2030. And essentially, the agenda boils down into 17 goal areas. And Soroptimist has made it a point to provide input into the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, or as we call them for shorthand, SDGs.
Exactly.
So our organization has two key programs that we have actively in the field, advancing 5 of the 17 SDGs.
5? Which 5 are they?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So the first one is their goal 1, the UN SDG goal 1, which is poverty.
Yes.
And poverty in all forms everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We also advance through our 2 key programs, goal 4, which is education. This specifically says to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to those 2, we also advance the more obvious one, goal 5, gender equality, which is about achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls.
Oh, definitely.
And we have 2 more that we advance. Goal 8, employment. This is about promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And then the last SDG that we advance is Goal 10, inequality. And this is about reducing inequality within and among countries.
Wow. You know, let me say, you're the first organization I have come across that I am actually speaking to somebody who's working on Goal 8 and Goal 10, which are ones that I personally have a great interest in. And I've been trying to figure out how do we really rapidly advance that, because once we advance that, many of the other things will be advanced. You know, if you advance inequality, if you advance work, you know, the rest follows.
It's an interconnected world, and we understand that our work can move these 5 aspects forward.
So let's talk about the ones I think we have to do with employment, especially before we go on to leadership. When we think about employment, I'm sure you have not, if you have not seen, at least you know about all the dystopian films that are being made about the future and the future of work, the huge conversation being had globally. What will happen with AI? What do you think 2030 might look like realistically? And how will women adopt in more leadership positions, let's say in the next 5 years? If we have a real, let's say, rapid ramping up of leadership in women in both the public and private sectors, how do you think that might have us move towards a more decent, thriving future by 2030? I guess my question is convoluted, but you know where I'm trying to go with this.
Well, I think what you're asking is, what will leadership look like in 2030?
Well, we won't actually reach the goal, I don't think, but I'm concerned about this idea of work and AI. And because you're working on these questions, how do you think it's going to happen? And do you think women's leadership, if we have more women in leadership, that will actually help us move more rapidly into that direction?
Well, let me give you some insight here. The UN Secretary General has stated that the SDGs will not be achieved if there is not accelerated action to empower women economically. And so this gentleman is saying that all of the 17 SDGs are hinging on empowering women economically. And so at SIA, our dream programs are really at the heart of the 2030 UN SDGs, because both of our dream programs are about economically empowering women and girls through access to education.
So how is Soroptomists participating in that?
So, well, let me just tell you a little bit about our programs. Our first program is known as the Live Your Dream Awards program. It reaches women in poverty, survivors of violence, and gender-based obstacles. These are women who have to be heads of households and are working to make a better life for themselves, their families, and their community. Since 1972, we have had this program, and we have invested over 30 million in tens of thousands of women working to achieve economic independence. We have another program, our second dream program. It's Dream It Be It, Career Support for Girls, which is empowering girls in secondary school to put their dreams into action. And it helps them identify their personal values, explore career options, create achievable goals, turn failures into successes, and build resiliency to overcome inevitable gender-based obstacles on the path to their success.
Now, tell me some of the countries that you are doing this in.
Well, we work actually now in 21 countries and territories. Our focus is in North, Central, and South America, as well as the Pacific Rim. So for us, the Pacific Rim would include South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines.
Okay, very interesting. Do you find then, as you have been working with these women and have a sense of how these programs have touched their lives, that they're able to almost be sort of like, let's say, touchstones or springboards for other women around them to move forward? What have you seen as being the result of your programming?
Yes, well, we have wonderful data about the results of our program. Reference you're making to influencing others around them, we call the ripple effect.
Yes.
So it ripples out from the women to their families, mostly their children, because typically they're a head of household, which means they're typically a single mother. And then from their children, it ripples out into the community. So they end up acting as a role model for themselves, their families, and others around them.
Now, to come back to the big picture, that's an individual level. So to come back to the big picture, we know that it will take about 10% of people to believe in the same value system for us to see like a tipping point around gender inequality, which is goal 5. And then hopefully this idea of economic inclusion and economic rights, which is, I guess, goal 8 and 10. How, from a Soroptimist viewpoint in terms of your own strategies and growth agenda, how are you positioning Soroptimists to be able to spread the gospel according to your organization to reach more people more rapidly?
Yes, well, rapid is always a, depends how you define it. We currently have a system of women volunteers who are in these 21 countries and territories that are delivering our program. And
you said 16,000 or 60,000?
30,000.
Okay, 30,000 women who are volunteers. How do you market your programs? Because I mean, I know about Soroptimists, but I don't hear about it a lot, which is interesting.
Yes, well, Soroptimist is known for its work both globally and locally. The whole think globally, act locally really applies to our organization, because on a global level, we do have this global network of alliances and these 30,000 volunteers in the 21 countries and territories. And we all participate in the efforts to advance gender equality, specifically economic empowerment through access to education. And then through our global network of alliances and our 30,000 volunteers, we can mobilize our specific social change at a local level. And that's because the real impact is made on the ground by SIA volunteers.
Do you have, for example, a chapter in Maryland, where I am in Maryland, DC, Metro DC? Because I've never come across them in this area. Do you have anything operational in the Metro Washington DC area?
Yes, we do. We have a couple of what we call clubs in the Metro DC area.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it must be the world's best kept secret, because we hear a lot about, well, again, I'm from Jamaica originally, and so certainly in Jamaica I know about Kiwanis and Rotary as service clubs, but I've never heard about Soroptimists, for example, in the English-speaking Caribbean region. Now, the gender question there is slightly different. I think in terms of many of the countries would have laws that certainly don't discriminate anymore. In the last 10 years, a lot of changes have happened. I think in Latin America, you may still have some laws on the book, but I think a lot of countries have also changed their laws. But again, law and practice is two different things. So, you know, I know there's always that shift. The idea of gender exclusion, working from a development perspective, a lot of money has been spent on this issue between the World Bank and the International Development Bank and the OAS, all spaces in Washington, D.C. that are very much, you know, concerned with this agenda. But as you say, this idea of making change rapidly is how rapidly. So my question is, Soroptimists is working in a very important area, economic empowerment. And to come back to my question, we need to have a more rapid take-up of this SDG 10 agenda. Have you been thinking about ways in which you can then advance Soroptimists more visibly, so more people are aware of what you're doing and more people become, so you can move from 30,000 to say 60,000 in the next 5 years? Is this something that you are now working on?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Our primary mission is to improve the lives of women and girls who have faced obstacles, and we do this through access to education. And our theory and feeling is that by doing the work, we will be known because we're changing lives. And so that's what's really most important for us, You know, since 1972, I mentioned we've invested over 30 million in tens of thousands of women working to achieve economic independence. And as you probably well know, Claire, global agencies, both governmental and non-governmental, agree that a quality education, more than any other intervention, holds the greatest potential to transform the lives of women and girls. So when women and girls are educated, they have the opportunity and the choice, and they're much less susceptible to the many issues that disrupt their lives, such as poverty. They're less vulnerable to sex trafficking, and they're more likely to leave a domestic violence situation and not return, and to raise stronger and healthier families. Now, as you can imagine, these things take time. There is no quick uptake to change a social issue such as this. And so we work steadily and clearly towards our goal of improving the lives of women and girls who face obstacles through access to education.
All right, so I guess, am I hearing then that you're saying that there's no plans to expand your membership, or you feel that this is about all you can handle, this 30,000?
Oh, that has nothing to do with membership. Membership is a completely different issue than being able to address the population that we feel offer the greatest opportunity to help our planet, our societies, by improving their lives through economic independence.
So then when we think about, so you've said you're focusing on economic empowerment. I see that, I hear that. You're talking about you're reaching 30,000 people, right? Versus your membership. So what is your membership then?
Well, our membership base is 30,000 women in these 21 countries and territories. You know, knowing where you want to go is one thing, but getting there is another.
Well, that's very true. That's very true.
It definitely takes changing hearts and minds to focus on creating collective impact for a very specific social change. And in our case, our focus is on economically empowering women and girls. Yeah. So it's those 30,000 local volunteers that are making it possible to connect, organize, and make economic empowerment happen for women and girls who face obstacles.
Yeah, in their countries. So as we draw to a close then, I'm sure you would say, certainly for your perspective, you're working on 5 SDGs, but since economic empowerment is your primary goal, I guess that would be SDG 10 or SDG 8. Which one would that be?
They're all 5 that I mentioned earlier.
There's no preferred one for you. It's all 5. You love all 5 of your children.
You can say, right, and I love them all the same, but they're all unique.
Clearly. So think about the future now and where Soroptomists is today. 30,000 members, 21 countries. I want you to jump with both feet into 2030 and look back at the 12 years that you would have invested, hopefully, in the organization. And what would you like to see as a headline for Soroptomists in 2030? As your achievements from here to the SDGs. Can you give me a headline you'd like to see?
Yes, I definitely can give you a headline, and it's that economic empowerment for women has increased 3-fold. You know, if we can realize this type of progress, then our citizens will be stronger, they're going to be raising healthier families, and they're going to enable our communities to affect the social change that they wish to see.
So you're not going to tempt me with a number like Soroptomists reach 100,000 women.
Well, actually, we plan to reach by 2031, 500,000 women and girls served through our DREAM programs.
Yay! I'm so excited to hear that. So I would definitely say then, I would definitely anticipate your answer to this question. Are you optimistic, pessimistic, or neutralistic?
I remain optimistic.
Of course.
Yes.
It's a wonderful headline. So I'm going to rewrite your headline and say your headline in 2030 will be Soroptomists International announces that it has met its target of reaching 500,000 women and girls in over 30 countries and have succeeded in building their membership to over 60,000 members, double what they had in the year 2018. Isn't that simply marvelous?
Doubling and tripling, that's what we want to do. And we can do that if you join the movement to help these women and girls by signing on to our liveyourdream.org. Here you can donate, you can take an action, you can pledge to help women and girls live their dreams, and you can become a member of Soroptimist.
And I certainly would like to find out more about what Soroptomists is doing in the DC metro area. And I'll make it my point of view to find out how come they're not doing a better job of shouting from the rooftops that we are here. Because I've never seen anything in DC about what they're doing. So I'm definitely going to make it my point of duty to follow up on that. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, Claire.
Folks, we have come to the end of another wonderful exploration of voicing Herstory, looking at the future history of women and hearing what one organization such as Soroptomists International, which as you've heard has 30,000 members in over 21 countries, plans to do to help shape a better history, a better future for women in the territories in which they exist. We have come to the end of this conversation where we explore stated ideas for sustainable futures. And I want you to always remember, it is better for us to act as the parent of our future rather than the child of our past. As we say in Jamaica, walk good and safe journeys.
You have been listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson, brought to you by the Futures Forum. For more, please visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Thank you for listening. Spread the word. Share the future.